going to make our drum. So you need your drum head, and you need 12 sets of holes like a clock. So 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Once you have your holes done out like a clock, you're going to take your wood and you're going to put the rounded part of your drum face down onto the rawhide. All right, so that's where we're going to start it. You need to stretch out your rawhide. We've already stretched out for expediency. And where are you going, Ethan? Because this is...
Oh yeah,
So I'm going to start at my 12 o'clock. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to... I need the scissors for a second, sweetie. I'm going to sharpen one edge so that it will go in easier, and I'm going to go in one side of my rawhide. And these holes are kind of small, so you really have to push. I'm going to go in one side on my rawhide and out the other. Whoever punched these holes in the drum kit made them tiny. And I'm going to pull that through and leave. So this would be my middle, and I'm going to leave enough so that it extends 6 inches past the other side of the drum. I'm going to make sure that when I feed the holes that the rawhide goes on the outside. And the reason it's important to know where you're going is when we lace this drum, we're going to go from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock, 1 o'clock to 7, 2 to 8, 3 to 9, 4 to 10, 5 to 11. So that's the first part. So Ethan, come on over here there, buddy. So that's the first part, and I'm going to stop the video, but remember, 12, 6, 1, 7, 2, 8, 3, 9. Thank you, little button. All right, so part 2. So we've gone from 12 to 6, 1 to 7, 2 to 8, 3, 9, 4, 10, 5 to 11. So I have my original chord here at 12 that was here, and I have my chord from 11. And just remember, all of these chords should be over the leather. So once I'm done, I'm going to start at 12 o'clock, and I'm going to follow my clock and pull everything tight. You want to follow the clock and tighten it up as best you can. So as you can see, I'm following the clock and tightening it up one rung at a time. So once I follow my whole clock and it's tight, okay. So I have 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to take this extra cord and I'm going to go under my 12 o'clock and I'm going to pull it up here. I'm going to do the same thing with my 11 o'clock. And so for my 11 o'clock, I'm going to go under in the exact same spot as my 12. And this is really long, so I'm going to pull it, and I'm going to be here at the middle. I'm gonna take this, and so 12, 11, 10, 9, and I'm gonna go under the 9, and I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, and out the 3 o'clock, and I'm gonna pull it up. So I'm gonna do the same thing with this, except for I'm gonna go from 3 to 9. And what that does is it pulls all of my spokes to the center. Once it's to the center, I'm going to tie it in a knot. Now, there are a variety of ways that we can finish a drum handle. You could leave your drum handle like this, it wouldn't matter. Some people do a basket weave underneath, and they just weave it so that it looks like the end of a basket. The easiest way to handle it is in a cross, and that's the method that we're going to do. So for the cross, you're going to take your 12, 11, and 1, and you're going to take your thread, and you're just going to weave it around those 3, and you weave it as tight as you possibly can. And when you get to the end of your thread, you're just going to take it and make a little knot and pull. And I'm going to pull this so that it is under the rawhide. And the good thing about rawhide is when it dries, it will stay tight, so I don't have to do much with that knot other than put it there. So I'm going to leave these 1, 2, 3 here, and I'm going to take this longer one, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to wrap it around the next 3, making sure that I pull it tight as I go. So that I want to keep the same length as the other one. Completing my handle. Once you get to this exact same length as the other one, go through one of the middle spokes down behind the back and either go to your 3 o'clock or your 9, it doesn't matter, and do the same thing. I've balled up the thread just to make it easier to pull through, because while you were stringing it through, you know that it's pretty long. Make sure that you keep it tight. The other thing, when you were doing your rattles, you know that rawhide dries out and it has to be worked on while it's wet. When we took a break on the video, I did soak the lacing for a few minutes because it was starting to get dry. If you work slow, it will dry as you're going, and so you need to take a break and soak it so that it's still wet. So always keep it wet. All right. So again, I'm at the same spot, so I go under and I come to my next spot and go around. You'll notice that I do work relatively quickly as I'm going, because you do want this to be wet as you're going. I'm not overly concerned about whether the rawhide is flat, just as long as I work quickly, carefully, and make sure that I pull this tight. You want it tight, but you don't want it too tight. I know I always tell you guys to make sure that your work is super tight. If you pull this too tight, there is some give on this, but there's not a whole bunch of give. If you pull it too tight, when the rawhide shrinks and dries, it will snap your drum. So this is my last one, and I'm just going to make that knot. And I'm going to pull it. I also want to make sure that my knot is on the bottom, so I'm just going to take this and knot it through so that when I pull my rawhide, that knot is on the bottom. The reason you want it on the bottom is you don't want it to cut your hand as you're going. You are going to cut it but not too short. If you cut it up here, when it dries, it will pull under there, so make sure it's cut short but not too short. All right, last part. You want these flat. So the way that you make them flat is you take your leftover rawhide and you're going to wrap it around your drum as many times as you possibly can. And tie it. So I've wrapped it around. I'm tying it. I'm not going to cut this because I can use this rawhide for other things, and so I'm not going to cut it. But what I am going to do is I'm going to make sure that my drum side is flat, that my rawhide is over each part so that it stays flat, and now I'm going to leave it to dry. You want to leave it to dry either this way or that way. Usually in a window, we usually make our drums in the summertime so they can dry in the morning sun. But because it's winter time, if I put it beside the window, it's going to warp. So you want to lie it flat to dry for at least 7 days. You don't want to bang on it at all while it's drying. And you want it in a warm, not humid room. The humidity will ruin your drum. Thank you.